Hi Math 8 students, this is Mrs. Petey. I'm going to do a video for you guys. Make sure you're in your note packet or in your math packet. Make sure you're at Notes, Unit 1, Topic 2, Substitutions of Variables into Expressions. We're going to do a few of these together. I'm going to skip a few and we're going to do those in our class time for our next Zoom meeting, but you're going to go through and the video will stop occasionally because I'm going to put this into an Edpuzzle video, and you will be asked to put some answers in, and one of the choices will be that you're having a hard time and you're not getting a correct answer, so that I can see where you are. So don't be afraid to put that if you're really not getting the right answer rather than just guessing. Okay? Alright, so we're going to start with A. And what this is and I'm just going to go through the top here. It says a reminder, an expression is a combination of variables. Remember, variables are letters that represent an unknown amount, and numbers using standard operations. And your operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Part 1 asks us to evaluate, or in other words, to solve and figure out what we get for an answer for that expression when we take the expression and given a value for the variable. Okay, so we're going to show our substitution, and this is what we've done this. We did this a little bit last year, but not too much. But we're going to show our substitution, which is replacing the variable with a number that is given to you. Then we're going to use our calculator to solve. Okay, think of substituting just like if you have a substitute teacher. A substitute teacher is someone who replaces your teacher. Same idea with these. They're giving us a number to represent our variable, so we're going to substitute, we're going to replace it in place of that variable. So for the first one here, we have n plus 12, and it's saying 4 when n equals -2. So this -2 is going to be put into my expression in place of the n. So here, in place of the n, and you should write this down, I'm going to rewrite this equation, and in place of n, I'm going to put -2. So here, in place of my n, is going to go -2 plus 12. And then you can type that into your calculator and you should be able to get an answer for that. -2 plus 12, you should have gotten positive 10. Okay, we're going to take a look at B. B says 8t. Now, hopefully you remember that when you have a number right next to a variable like that, what operation do we have to do? Do we have to add them, subtract them, multiply them, or divide them? What does that mean? In place of that t, that means multiplication. In place of that t, we're going to put 3/4. So in here, instead of having 8 times t, and it kind of covered it up a little bit, sorry there, I'm going to write 8 times, and I'm using my dot for times, 3/4. Now, when I go to put that in on my calculator, I can use my ABC button. So I'm going to type in 8 times 3. Then I'm going to use that ABC button to type in a fraction. And then my 4. Okay, when you do that, you should get a 6. Okay, let's take a look at C. C, we have y. For the top of our fraction, we have our fraction bar over 8. Do you remember what operation it means when we have a fraction bar? So does that fraction bar represent adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Hopefully you remember that represents division. So we're going to replace, here it wants us to use y as -24. We're going to substitute or replace my y with -24. So I'm going to rewrite it as -24 over 8. Now, if I typed it in on my calculator and I used the ABC button, I could do that. It's going to just give it, if it would reduce as a fraction, it would leave my answer as a fraction. So you could either type it in using the ABC button, you could type in -24 ABC 8, or you could type this in as -24 from top to bottom divided by 8. Either way will work for this one. And you should come up with -3. Okay, I'm going to skip down because we're going to do a couple of these together in class. I want to kind of wanted to do the harder ones with you so we could talk about them a little bit more. So we're going to leave D and E for in class next time we meet on Tuesday. I'm going to jump over to F. We did talk about putting an exponent in on our calculators in class on Friday, so hopefully you remember how to do that. But this is telling me, and I have 2t, and again I have that number right next to that variable, so that means 2 times t, and t is being raised to the second power. Now, one other thing we have to be careful of, and I remember Mr. Barnes mentioned that when we go to type it in on the calculator, to think of that those parentheses as kind of squishing that negative. We want that -3 to stay, that negative to stay with that 3. So when I rewrite this, I'm going to put that in parentheses, because if I go to put that in on my calculator and I don't have those parentheses, it's going to cause me a problem. Okay, so now when I go to put this in on my calculator, I'm going to rewrite it a little bit so you can see how that's going to look in the calculator. I'm going to do 2, and again, there's my dot as my times, parentheses, -3, close my parentheses. I'm going to use that caret symbol to put in an exponent of 2. Okay, so you should be able to type that in and hit your equals and see what it gives you. You should come up with 18, positive 18. Okay. So again, the only new thing that we're really doing here, aside from a little bit of some of the calculator work is obviously a little more complicated than what we might be used to, but really the only new thing we're doing here is substituting, which I believe we did actually do some last year. So we're just replacing that variable with the number that they're telling us. I'm going to jump down and we're going to go to G. So for G, we have 10 minus 3x. And they're telling me for when x is 7, we want to see what that's going to equal. So again, in place of my x, I'm going to put a 7. So here, in place of the x, I'm going to put a 7 in. I'm going to rewrite it. So this is going to be 10 minus 3 times 7. Okay, and you can, this one shouldn't be too hard once you have it rewritten. You're going to just type that in on your calculator, and that, whoops, that should give me -11 you should be getting. And we're going to do one more. We're going to do h together. So h says we have -2m plus 15, and again for this one we're going to use m equals 4. So in place of my m, I'm going to put a 4 in. So I'm going to box those 2 in, and I'm going to rewrite it. So I have -2. Again, when you have that number right next to that variable, we're multiplying. So I'm going to put that dot up high for multiplier in the middle for multiplying. -2 times 4 plus 15. And again, you can just type that in your calculator. And that should give you 7. Okay, we will finish the rest of these in class. So, and I wouldn't really recommend working ahead and trying. I mean, you could attempt them maybe on a piece of scrap paper if you'd like to, but some of these are a little harder and I want to make sure we know how to type them in our calculator. Okay, you have a great day and I will see